Michael, how do we understand the concept of agency, whether it's applied to human beings as agents or possibly some supernatural creature? What are the common things that we're looking to understand?
Well, my concept of agency is that the human brain has this tendency to impute into patterns that it finds intentional agency. And by that, I think it's a product of our neuroscience, that we're natural-born dualists. We tend to think that there's two substances. There's body and soul. There's brain and mind. There's material and immaterial. There's corporeal and incorporeal. So,
Why is that?
Why is it? Well, I think it has to do with our temporal lobes and how we just tend to be able to imagine something other than just the physical world. This happens from very early on, like babies, like 6 months old. Experiments show that they impute agency to things that are just physical objects. And essentialism, that we think there's an essence to a thing. There's a dog that looks like this, a German Shepherd, and a dog that looks like a pit bull, and a dog that looks like a poodle. But there's doggedness that is represented by a mammal that barks and wags its tail and comes and drools and all the things that dogs do. And so that we have this idea that I think is an evolved tendency to categorize nature into species, not just animals, but stars and rocks and
That helps us make sense of the world.
Absolutely. So I mean, the whole idea of prejudice and tribalism and xenophobia and fear of Jews and fear of blacks and women and so on, that's just, it's a byproduct of the fact that we have to categorize things. We have to put people and objects into boxes and say that they're like this and they're not like that. And you can't survive otherwise. And I think that an agent, a godlike being, a demon, an angel, whatever, they are part of just some other category that, as a byproduct of our dualism and our centralism, is like an invisible, non-corporeal, inanimate force.
What are some characteristics of an agent? How do you differentiate an agent from a non-agent?
Intentionality, apparent intentionality, apparent free will, apparent acting not in conformity to laws that we can see around us.
Okay, so able to do things on a non-regular basis.
Right, and we feel like we have agency.
Right, sure.
The illusion
that's the
of
whole
free
argument,
will.
whether we have it or don't, or who knows.
But we feel like it.
We feel like it, and so we're able then to impute that into other things.
Right, I think it's a projection of our own sense of agency. I mean, this whole dualism, it's not just I see it in you, I see it in myself, right? And the whole essentialism, I have my own essence as a person, and I'm free to do whatever I want. That's an agent.
Right, and so you naturally apply that to other people because you see similarities with other people that you feel for sure in yourselves. So you make the assumption, which may not be true. It could be a robot that looks like perfectly designed, but you make the assumption that the other people are like you. And then how far does that extend? And that extends to supernatural things as well. Is that what you're saying?
It does, and I think that's probably also a product of the fact that we just have more cortex and areas of the cortex that do things like project invisible agents and essentialism and dualism. And I mean, you can poke around in areas of the temporal lobe here just above your ear, and people will sense floating out of their bodies. Yeah. They'll sense a presence in the room of another being. You can generate this through sleep deprivation, through extreme stress, hunger, high altitude. There's a bunch of different conditions that cause people to think that there's somebody else here, right there, often on the left side, because it's a right cortex thing. It's very strange. This happens to a lot of ultramarathon athletes and climbers, especially. They'll send somebody right there with them, and they'll talk to them, and the entity talks back. But what I'm saying by pointing to the temporal lobe, it's a byproduct of neuroscience. It's your neurology.
And what you sense is an agent as opposed to a big rock, something that has mental independence and apparent free will.
Absolutely,
as opposed to just an entity that's in the room, a big table or a refrigerator.
Often these climbers and explorers will not only just describe that they sense a presence, but that they talk to them, and the person help them survive. This often happens when people are alone and trapped out in the woods or in the snow or something like this. They'll imagine talking to them, and they get advice back. right? So it's not just a rock. It's somebody
Yeah.
that cares about me, is here to help
It's
me.
a guardian angel.
Yeah, it's like a guardian angel, which is really just, and then you just start scaling up all the way to God. And pretty soon you have a God area in the brain, probably in the temporal lobes.
And what's the implication of that?
Well, the implication for us materialists is that there is no God, that we've created it in our brains.
Because of this ancientnicity, to use your word.
Yes, right. Now, I mean, somebody could argue, well, as some neuroscientists do that believe in God. Well, God put it there so we could, make the. Yeah, I don't know. That seems a bit of a reach to me. It's like the causal vector there is in one direction. First the neuroscience, then the belief in God, not the other way around.